Hey everybody, welcome to a very special video. This is not your normal Super Auto Pets video. This is a tier list Super Auto Pets video. Very professionally done because I'm not really in the camera frame. There we go, I'll just fix that immediately. Honestly, I mentioned this in the previous video and I mentioned it a few videos ago. I really wanted to do this tier list. Mainly because I think there's going to be a big balance patch coming out. I'm going to probably check out maybe the next video online. I don't know exactly what this is. I think it's on like one of the like itch.io web pages or something. They pushed like a test version of this forward, which has widespread changes. So I expect that to come out fairly soon, but maybe it'll have like a few amendments. So I was like, you know what? I played this like 20 something hours. I played a lot more of it off camera than I did on camera. And I just wanted to tell you what I thought about, you know, the balance of the game and, you know, what animals are really strong. So I expect this to be a long one. I better get started. Right, hopefully this is still capturing well. I've never tried to capture off a window before, so this is actually novel for me. Immediately, and by the way, on this list is both animals and fruits, but I think I'll go through the animals first and deal with the fruits afterwards. Also, I can't have just, you know, A, S, B, C, D, E, F. Let's have, you know, a heat scale. We have the ghost pepper. Or the ghost chili, I suppose. 1L, you moron. I can spell. That was really wrong. Whatever. Then, the next hottest thing, just a brew. A cup of tea, you know, boiling water. I say this. You know what? I've thought of something better. A brew, you're actually now the B tier. Interestingly, whatever. Microwavable meal. They are always too hot when they come out of the microwave, which makes sense. You are tier 2. Then, we have to have something in the middle. A sandwich. You know, room temperature. Can I get you to be not... Oh, whatever, it's so scuffed. Then, we want something cool. We'll have... Gazpacho. Gazpacho? Question mark? Is that how you spell it? I think so. And then, we'll have just ice. The E tier. And then, honestly, what is colder than ice? I mean, plenty of things. But everything else has been a food source. If you drink this, you're going to have a bad day. We're going to have liquid... No. Solid CO2. Perfect. You know, people put it in, like, drinks and stuff to give this, like, smoky effect. So it's almost like a food source. There's our tier list. Top of the tree, the ghost chili. Bottom, solid CO2. Right, we have to, you know, get underway now. I've accidentally just tabbed into Super Auto Pets, which I had the music on in the background. Ant. Tier 1 unit. I should really have another page next to me telling me what some of these animals do when they tier up, because some of them I've never tiered up before. But the ant, the lowly ant, in tier 1, I think it might be the best tier 1 creature. It is so strong. It's a 2-1 that gives you a 2-1 as a death rattle. But it puts it on a unit. That's like 4-2 in stats. That's going to overcome most health of any unit, including units that have like combined once. Honestly, you're a microwavable meal. You're not ghost chili. You definitely tail off. And this is, by the way, I'm going to take into account their tier level as well when I make this list. Or at least I will do the best I can. Because, you know, there are some things I don't quite remember off the top of my head. You are definitely microwavable meal. You have definitely plays. You're very strong early on. You peter out towards the end, but that's fine. You've done your work. And when you're about to peter out, you just pill it. You pill the ant. You get the buff. Multi-purpose. I like you. Badger. Right. There are mean stuff with Badger. The Badger is... Oh my god. I need to... put something else up somewhere. Hang on a sec. Pause. Okay, I'm back. So I just opened up another tab just to remind me what the health and attack of units are. I thought Badger was 5-4. It is 5-4. It is a tier 3 5-4 unit. It has a death rattle where it deals its damage to adjacent animals. And when you tier it up, it's... What do you do when you tier it up? I'm not exactly sure when it tears up. Does it change its effect? Or does it do it to, like, an animal beyond that? Or does it multiply? I think it might be multiplicative, actually. It does, like, more damage to the next unit. Or something along those lines. Either way, It's irrespective of what my rating is going to be. You are Gazpacho tier. You basically aren't very good. If you run it at the front, you're going to hit one of your own units for damage, and that's not good. It's like the juice is not worth the squeeze for the stats. Even at tier 3, you do have a lot of attack. You might be the highest attack tier 3 unit, actually. But you're not worth it, really, because you hit your next unit behind you for 5. So I like to think of you as a... you're basically a 5-0. Because, you know, it's actually a 5-1. And you're just not worth it. You're like worse meat. Now, I do appreciate there are synergies with it, and that the other person gets that effect too. So you're actually a 5-1 that deals 5 damage and does another 5 damage. But it actually scales with your attack, so it's X damage, where X is your attack. If you honey your badger and leave it at the back, you can win games that you otherwise wouldn't win. And that's basically why you're in Gazpacho. There are then some very niche scenarios where it can be good further forwards, like if you have melon armor and a unit behind. So for example, if you have a ox, which has melon armor on it already because you've killed something, for example, and you run a badger in front of it, the badger dies, hits the melon armor on the on your ox, and then it reprocs the melon armor, so, you know, it's completely fine. By the way, I'm immediately going to start stripping off, so don't worry about it. My heating's working again, so it's nice and warm. But yeah, other than those niche scenarios, I don't respect the badger. I don't think it's an animal that you can take to the end of the game and it be effective, is what I would say for the badger. Now, I'm sure someone can point out an example where, you know, their badger was running in position 1 or 2 and, you know, it gave them a fantastic build. But I've not thought of it, so that's my list. Right, next, the beaver. You're going to notice a trend here. I rate a lot of the tier 1 creatures very highly. The beaver, I think you're in... Do I put you in brood technology? I don't think I do. I think you're the top end of sandwich. You're very good. You're just a 2-2 body at tier 1 that sells and gives 2 units plus 1 health. Health early on is probably better than attack, in my opinion. It's only really when you start to get to the really like high scaling units that you need the health then as well, because you're going to get hit by like 50 damage. Early on, if you can put meat on the unit and give it a lot of, you know, defense, it's going to survive for a long time. I honestly, I think you're pretty good. You're a great unit. Okay, first possible controversial decision. This is a Bison, right? You are a tier 4 creature, you're a 6/6, and you scale +2/+2 if you have a level 3 friend. When you tier up, it's +4/+4, and when you tier up again, it's +6/+6. This reminds me, actually, just one thing to go back to the beaver. Your tier up effect is kind of worthless, but it doesn't matter for what you just do as your level 1 unit, so that's why you're also in sandwich and not brew. The Bison, again, your tier up effect is great. If I can get a tier 2 Bison and a level 3 unit, that's fantastic. That's really good scaling, especially for a tier 4 unit, like +4/+4. Your problem is that you are so hard to enable. It's so rare to get a tier 3 unit from the early game. Like, you're not often running your ant by the time the tier 4 animals are coming back out again. The only thing like you might still be running is something like a fish. So it's so hard to enable that other tier 3 unit. When you come out as well at tier 4, you're, what, 6/6 and you're +2/+2? You're scaling too slowly. Like, you're competing with the monkey. And the monkey doesn't have, like, the hindrances other than, like, they have to be buffing a front row unit. I'm sorry to say this, Bison. I think you're just a worse version of the monkey. And I'm going to put you in Gazpacho for now. But I think you're low-end Gazpacho. I actually think you're worse than the badger. The badger has niche scenarios where it's actually useful, especially early game. I think Bison doesn't have any. You know what, actually, Bison? Screw it. I'm going to put you in Ice tier for now. I might move you in the future. You can be top end of Ice tier. Like, again, you're going to show me builds where it's popped off, and I think I've had builds where it's popped off. Like, you've got this great scenario where you tier up your Bison very quickly. You've had a level 3 Mosquito or something along those lines, and it gives you enough scaling just to dominate the game. More often than not, though, I think it's bait. Blowfish. Blowfish, you're a unit that if you're damaged, you deal 2 damage, and then when you tier up, I think it's 4, and then it is 8. Is it 8? No, it's 6, I think. What are you, actually, Blowfish? Let me just double check. Again, you're going to get a good hint of where I'm going to rate you, because it's 6. I thought it was. Yeah, you're 3... You're really a 3-5. I thought you were a bit less than that. It's 3-5. Hurt does 2, then 4, then 6 on the tiers. You... I really want to believe in you. It's so hard to get the build. In theory, like, if you have Blowfish, and you have, like, you know, Elephant, which does hurting, or you have a Hedgehog, and you've seen this in runs before, someone will run the Hedgehog at the front, then they'll have the Elephant, you'll keep hitting the Blowfish, and you're just going plip, 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 plip. And, you know, it's so different to any of the other builds. It's fantastic. The problem with it is the build is terrible. So you're going into Ice tier as well. Can it win runs? Honestly, I don't know. I don't think it can. And I think it comes out too late to be really viable early game. You have to pivot so quickly. You know, to pick up an Elephant, pick up a Hedgehog. If one of these things was like a tier lower, then like you could sort of build into it a little bit. Like if they pulled the Hedgehog down a tier or something, I think then it could be viable. Or at least early game viable, but I just... There's so many times it's burnt me. Like, it's broken my heart too many times. Sorry, you're in Ice tier. Right. The Caterpillar slash... Is Caterpillar and Butterfly on differently? Let me just scroll down. No, it's under Caterpillar. Okay. The Caterpillar is a really good unit. I like it. The strongest build, I think, in this game is just scaling. Which isn't really a build, but, you know, if you can scale all your units very quickly and get to 50-50, you stomp over, like, the plip build. The problem with this is it has, like, a bit of a staging to it. You get a Caterpillar at first. In fact, let me just go into it to be, again, more specific. It's a 1-4 Caterpillar, and at the end of each turn, it levels up a little bit, like, it dings up. And then when it hits level 3, it turns into a Butterfly. So it evolves into Butterfly. It loses any of its effects, like any food on it. But it then gains the stats of the highest health unit, I think. The strongest friend. Which, honestly, if you can pick up a Caterpillar early enough, you can really just tailor your run to stack, you know, buffs on one unit. And then you basically get those buffs paid out to you on the Butterfly. It's insanely strong. The other nice thing, by the way, is that you might say, okay, it's bad, you can't put, you know, Melon Armor on it. No, you can't put Melon Armor on it directly, but equally, if someone puts weakness on you, you don't worry about it, because, you know, you're just going to evolve out of it. So it's actually a bit of a survival thing as well. Then, the other benefit, and this isn't often talked about with the Caterpillar, because it's auto-leveling, it hits like level 2, then it'll hit level 3, and it gives you a tier animal up as well. That's really strong. You can roll into something like, you know, a Water Buffalo, and then you just start building on the Water Buffalo, you know, Boogie Woogie build, Buy Me, Sell Me. You can put pears on it, and eventually you get that super buffed animal, and then you get the payout of it evolving into that and taking those stats. It's like discounting all buffing abilities. Honestly, I think you're close to Ghost Chili build. I'm going to put you in Microwavable Meal right now. But you're the top end of it. You're almost run winning, I think. Next, Camel. Camel is another unit which I really want to believe in. So the Camel is tier 3, I believe, as well. Yes. It's a 2-5. Every time it hurts, it buffs the unit behind +1/+2. Then if it tiers up, it's +2/+4, and then +3/+6. Camel, you're going to go a similar way, unfortunately, to our friend, the Blowfish. I think your hurt trigger effect is too hard to get off with the animals in the game right now. If you scale beyond, like, you know, its hurt triggers, you just get no benefit. But unlike the Blowfish, I think you're not the worst thing to pick up early on. If you get some stats on it, you can just run it as, you know, just a stat lord. That being said, I don't think you're run winning. I'm going to put you in Sandwich tier. I'm not unhappy to see a Camel, but very rarely do I buy a Camel and go, okay, this is, you know, something we can put our hat on and build a run around it. You're just not that. Equally, frankly, I don't think you ever build around the hurt trigger. I don't think you put like an elephant in front of it or a hedgehog in front of it to trigger its effect. Because if you think about it, especially with a hedgehog, if you do use the hedgehog, it's going to do 2 damage to the unit behind it anyway. And you only give it 1/2, so you basically give it +1 attack. It's not worth it to set up the build for, like, you know, 6 gold to do that. The elephant It might only hit the Camel, and I guess there are niche scenarios again where you get one trigger, so it's +1/+2, and you didn't have other choices. Fine, that might be okay. But again, it won't take you to the end game, and it doesn't really help you that much in the mid game. Like, it's almost equivalent to just, combining another animal. If your health was a bit higher, honestly, like, if they traded away a bunch of your attack and put it onto your health, you could move up to the Abreu territory. Like, you could power through the mid game with it. But I think because of your stats right now, I think you have to go in sandwich. Right. What is actually your name? Because there's like 3 cats in this game. Well, actually, I think there's 2 cats. Are you Black Cat? Or just Cat? You're just Cat. Right. So you double the effect of food items. When you tier up, I think it's triple. Is it then quadruple? Again, this is another creature I don't think I've ever tiered up to 3. Yeah, it is quadruple. That's actually insane. But again, it's a tier 6 unit, so, you get it late game. But I underrated this creature very early on. I thought it was useless. I thought it came too late. Food isn't that good. Most of them don't give you stat buffs. When combined with the cow, and by the way, I love the development in this game that there is like certain scenarios like that where honey badger is a strong thing, and a honey badger is an animal. Cats getting the cream, it's a saying, cats like dairy. Cat plus cow is super strong end game. If you just buff up like 3 units, and I don't think that's the worst strategy to have 3 strong units, maybe like a utility unit and then a scaler. If you put the cat in there and just start trying to get cows and peaches, you can really get a unit like going. Do I think it's ghost chili? No. I think you're in microwavable meal territory again. I think you're better than the ant. I think if everything's going wrong for you and you hit tier 6, you can do worse than picking up a cat and then a cow. It could really turn your run around a little bit. But equally, I think you aren't the best scaler. You're up there. It's hard to explain. I think you're better than the dragon, but I think you're worse than the T-Rex, is probably where I'm going to put you in terms of scaling. You do cost a lot of money, because you have to buy the food rather than getting just natively. But if you can tier this up, or you run 2 of them, and just buff 2, I think it's super strong. I think I'm happy with you in microwavable meal. The cow. This is possibly going to be one of the most unpopular opinions on my list. I think the cow is ghost chili tier. And this is for a weird reason. And I don't think it's going to be like that for any other animal in this tier list. Maybe with the snail. I think the snail might go up here. Though they sort of occupy a similar niche. I think you're very bad in the ghost chili tier, but I think you're in it. Very rarely do I not buy a cow. You are a body for 3 health, plus 2/2 in stats with milk. You combine with other creatures that have food, abilities like the worm, the cat, and you can target where the buff goes. It's very strong. And so often I have this like flex position where I have something I'm buying and selling. You get a cow and you get an additional advantage on the buy-sell. I think it fits into so many builds. But it's only there temporarily. It's not something that's really going to win you the game. And again, it depends really how I'm going to do this tier list. I'm trying to mix it up between like units that are very strong, end game, and units that provide like such a great utility that you always want to see it and pick it up. Well, like you almost always want to see it and pick it up. That's honestly what I think the cow is. Crab. Again, we're looking a bit lopsided right now. Crab, I think, is in the microwavable meal tier. You're close again towards like lower end ghost chili. Crab has a bit of a broken build with it, and by broken build I mean if you scale a unit, very much, honestly, you're very much like the butterfly / caterpillar. You buff another unit, you put a crab in, the crab copies the health of the unit in front, and this is a tier 3 creature, I believe, from what? Is it tier 3 or tier 2? I don't even remember. You come out around that point. Let me just check again. You are tier 2. Holy moly. You're actually earlier than I ever thought. But you copy the health of the unit in front, and you're a 3/3 natively. But you're effectively a 3x, because normally by the time you've got a crab, you have a 3 plus health unit in front. You buff a unit in front, so you're paying like 3 gold for like pears and stuff, and apples and so on. Or you have a monkey or something buffing it. You run the crab behind it and it gets half those buffs. You basically get like 1.5 gold back on every buff you've bought on the unit in front of the crab. It's such incredible value. It has no effect when it tiers up, which is probably what stops it from going into Ghost Chili tier. Like if it was double the health, it could go into Ghost Chili because then you would tier up once and it would just, rock out. And the dream for Ghost Chili is you put a meat on it. It has like 8 attack then effectively because it'll be 3 plus the meat on 5. And you'll have an 8x where X is probably something between like 6 and 12 early on. And through the early game to the mid game, it'll carry you. The crab just carries you through that mid game. I don't think there's many other units that can do what the crab can do. It is so strong. That's all I've got to say about the crab. Cricket. Tier 1 unit. 1-2. When it dies, it summons a 1-1. So you're effectively like a 2-3, but your stats split. And your stats being split is better than having them just in one go. So a 1-2 that summons a 1-1 is in theory better than a 2-3. Now, there are scenarios where that's not the case. For example, a rhino or a hippo, they get triggers on killing units. So you're obviously bad against that. But early on in the game, you don't worry about that as the cricket. Cricket, though, you're going in sandwich tier. You can make horse builds work, but horse builds are terrible. So your best build is bad. That being said, I think you're a decent body. When you level up, you produce a 2-2, and when you level up again, it's a 3-3. You're something that's okay in the early game, but you want to get rid of. You're probably not above the Beaver, though. You're somewhere down below in the sandwich tier. You're probably low sandwich, high Gazpacho tier. Definitely something you can run, but you're probably going to sell it. The other semi-nice thing, and it's like a niche scenario again for it, if you have an animal which has a faint trigger associated with like a shark or mainly the ox, which comes out early enough, you can pill the cricket. It gives you a zombie cricket, I think it's called. You proc the faint trigger, or, the summon trigger if it's a dog, and then you sell the other creature and get the 1 gold back, so it's a free pill. Very niche, but sometimes useful. Crocodile. Never smile at one of them, and I'm never smiling when I see one of them. So the Crocodile is a 6-3 tier 5 unit. Start the battle does 7 damage to the last enemy. At level 2, it's 14 damage to the last enemy, and then 3 is 21. You come out so late, because again, you're tier 5, that frankly, you're not worth it. Now, I believe in Snipe meta, there is a strong build, which is a summon build, where you get like a fly, plus a turkey, plus things that die in death rattle. And you can get insane stats, especially if you get a rooster or something and tier that up. Things keep dying, you keep getting flies, the flies get buffed by the turkey. And one of the great ways to counter that build, other than having like insane stats, is to instead snipe it. The tiger. The crocodile, though, only snipes the back unit, which could be the fly in the case of, fly turkey build. But if you have something like shark at the back, often it's been buffed enough anyway that it's out of the snipe technology for the crocodile, and that's no good. The other problem with it is that you really want to snipe low health units, because you might hit a crab, for example, and ruin a crab build. You could hit a turtle and maybe prop the melon armor too early on a unit. Crocodile, I think, is the weakest sniper. Not the weakest, but... Well, you know what? I say you're not the weakest. You might be the weakest sniper. It's very rare that I ever take you. I think you're in ice/solid CO2. Why are you called CO92? That's all wrong. Screw it, start again. Just tear it all up. I had a typo. No, we'll leave it. I honestly think you're back here. I don't think you're great. Right, a deer. A deer is a tier 4 animal. It's a 1-1 creature that dies and summons a boss, which is 5/5 with chili. And chili is a splash damage effect. You are very strong in these fly turkey builds because you summon a creature, and that creature is very good. It's very good, especially with like splash damage, of breaking like maybe 2 melon armors at the same time late game, or maybe taking out like a scorpion with like a death touch, and then breaking the melon armor. You're very useful. Behind a whale, you get 2 procs of the buses. Honestly, you're a unit that I'm fairly happy just to take. I'm going to put you high in the brood tier, though. You're not one I always take, but sometimes when I'm a bit lost, I just stick one of you in. You're a big power creep for me. So I think you're going to slot into brood technology. By the way, when it tiers up, the bus becomes a 10-10 from a 5-5. Then I think it goes to 15-15. But again, it's very rare to get a tier 3 dare. It is weakness as well for that, is if you do whale builds, and it's only a minor weakness, the whale will spit out a tier 1 dare. So you'll get a 5-5 coach on top of that, or a bus. Now, you can tier the whale up and get, you know, the extra buff off that. Which is fine. I think it's not too bad, but it's not incredible. It's pretty good, though. Anyway, your brood tier. Dodo. So you're one of the creatures I wanted to review in this, and you were part of the investigation of the last video. You were nerfed because you used to be insanely strong. You used to buff the 2 units in front on a level up. By the way, the unit gives its attack to the unit in front. A tier 3 animal, I believe. Let me just check this again. I'm almost certain you're tier 3. You're tier 2. Holy moly, I'm actually wrong again. You come up very rarely, I have to admit. Or, like, I feel like you come up very rarely. But yeah, tier 2 animal. 1-3, you give the attack to the unit in front. When you tier up, it used to be that you gave your attack to the 2 units in front, which was insanely strong. You were S tier. Instead, you now give a multiplier of your attack to the unit in front when you tier up, and it's ×2 then ×3. Frankly, you never need to get the ×3 buff. ×2 is almost always enough to give you 50 attack on the unit in front. And you might think, you know what? He said that, you know, health is more important than attack. So, that's not too bad, right? Wrong. It's actually Ghost Chili tier. It has one of the strongest synergies in the game, the 2-unit synergy. If you can buff up a Dodo and get it, let's say you get it to 20 attack. And that's not too hard, you know, for picking up a unit early on. And you tier it up during that spell. It will give the unit in front 40 attack. Now, there's a unit in this game that has an effect based on its attack. It is the Rooster. It is incredibly strong. If you can get a Rooster on tier 4 and you've got a buffed up Dodo, you basically get double the attack again on the Rooster as another body. And that has all kinds of connotations of being insanely strong. Plus, when you level it up, it basically gives you another multiplier on top of that. In fact, I'm going to break rank here. I'm going to level the Rooster at the same time. The Rooster, I think, is also Ghost Chili tier. I think it's better than the Dodo as well. So, Rooster, its attack... Sorry, it's a 1-1, is it, at the start? Tier 4 unit. You start as 1-1. Are you tier... Where the hell are you? Oh, no, you're out there. You are. You're 3-3 on the start. That's it. You die, and you summon a chick with 1 health, plus the attack of the Rooster. That combo is insanely strong with the Dodo. Dodo gives you a 43-3 Rooster. It dies, it summons out a 43-1 chick. If you can tier it up, it then summons 2 chicks. Another tier is 3 chicks. If you can get that tier 3 and a Dodo behind it, you can easily kick out 351s, which will just kick through melon armor, they'll kick through high health units. It's incredibly efficient. Like, it's the most value I think you can get in the game. You discount not only like the buffs on the Rooster itself, because, you know, you put them on the Dodo. You still get the benefit on the Dodo, but they like go onto the Rooster. But then they get like shared again with your chicks. So if you tier this up, you're almost, I mean, it's not quite a free buff, but you're talking about like getting 2 gold back on every buff. Maybe even higher than 2 gold. I've not really done the numbers. But this is possibly the strongest unit you can get to like 50-50, this combo. And the Dodo just helps the Rooster there. Admittedly, you don't need the Rooster to do this, which is why I'm going to put the Dodo behind the Rooster. And the Rooster has other builds where it works in, but the Rooster is insane. Dog. This might surprise again some people, because I take the dog a lot. I honestly rate the dog in the brood tier. So the dog is a 3-3, 2-2? You can't be 3-3, you must be 2-2. You're a tier 2 creature. Yeah, you're a 2-2. You're a Desmond. Yeah, you're a 2-2. Anytime you buy a unit and put it in a slot, so it's actually on a summon, not a buy. I have to get that right. It's a summon trigger. You either gain +1 attack or +1 health. That is very strong early on, because again, you're getting discounts on every buy of a unit. So, You pick up a dog, you buy a unit. Let's say you get, I don't know, the Beaver, for example. The Beaver gives you its 2/2 stat lines. In the future, you can sell the Beaver and put another unit there, and you get another +1. So it discounts the gold by a certain amount. It depends on what you value then one stat as, and not a stat you can choose. It's probably less than, you know, half a gold. It might be like a third of a gold. But it sort of adds up because you can get it so early on. It's kind of the opposite of the... what is it? Opposite of kind of like this Bison. If the Bison you could get earlier on to, like, you know, guarantee what was going to happen. Even maybe the Blowfish actually as well, which is very low down. If you can get it early and then build into that archetype, you're happier. The dog is something you can get in early enough that you can build into its archetype, and you should buy and sell things. As I said, you often have this flex slot anyway. And you just keep ticking him up and he keeps getting stronger and stronger. And honestly, eventually you'll get to a scaling unit like maybe a monkey or something, or a penguin. And you probably just leave it in because it's probably your highest attack and defense unit. And you just leave him there to go to 50-50. On his own though, I don't think he's that strong. I don't think he's Ghost Chili. He hasn't got the flexibility for that. And honestly, I don't think he's microwavable meal. I don't think he's as run winning. But he's very solid early on. He kind of defines a build. If you see one on, like, you know, turn 3, you almost always pick a dog. So in that regard, you might actually be above the deer. I'm just considering putting you actually into microwavable meal. But I think you are brute here. The problem with the dog is really, if you don't see it on turn 3, then I think it's too late. Turn 4 you can get away with. Turn 5 I think it's bait. At that point, you just don't take it anymore. And you look at scaling another unit. I'm happy enough to have you in brute here. You are somewhere around this deer, I think. Like, I'm honestly not too upset if you were either way around. But I'll put you this way around, because I think I'd probably get a dog more often than I get a deer. Dolphin. This is going to be a hard rating for me, because it's a unit I don't respect that much, but I don't think it's a bad unit. So I might put it in a tier that will surprise you. The Dolphin is a tier 4 unit, which again is a bit unfortunate it's so late. It is a 4/6 and it does 5 damage to the lowest health enemy. When you level it up, it's 10 damage. When you level it up again, it's 15 damage. Now, I mentioned this, or at least alluded to it before, that sniping units are sort of seeing a bit of a growth. And this is because enablers like the turkey and the fly, which are very strong, or the crab, are dominated by the dolphin because they normally have low stats. So the dolphin will just chomp on them and they'll break this synergy. Which is why raw stats I think is just the best build. If you can get like insanely high stats, the dolphin does nothing. You just laugh at the dolphin. The best it's going to do then is probably, like, you know, do a little bit of damage to a garlic unit or a melon armored unit. Maybe it pops melon. Honestly, that's not the worst thing. But it can also snipe scorpions as well. And a lot of people now run a scorpion, which is a great value unit. So I think if you have a 5th slot and you don't know what to put into it, and you have 3 gold left, there's a dolphin on there, I think you just throw out a dolphin. I don't think it's actually terrible. That being said, I think you're in sandwich tier. Do I think you're at the front of sandwich tier is the question. You're probably around here. I think there's more scenarios where you buy the Beaver. Not that I think the Beaver is obviously better than the Dolphin. In a 1-on-1, the Dolphin is going to slap the Beaver. You know, he's going to play with it. But that's not exactly what I'm doing the tier list on. I think early on you're going to pick up a Beaver more likely than you're going to pick up a Dolphin late. The Beaver gives benefits for other units, the Dolphin really is just a standalone unit. But I think it's okay in the sandwich tier. I think it's a niche examples. It has a place in this game. Dragon. Okay. So, Dragon is a tier 6 unit. It is a 6/8. It is, if you buy a tier 1 animal, you give all your friends +1/+1. If you buy it at level 2, it's +2/+2, and at level 3, it's +3/+3. It is in both expansion packs, and it's one of the few units that gives you growth across the board. Like, it scales everything. For that reason alone, it's pretty valuable. It's pretty strong. The problem with the Dragon is the catch. You have to keep purchasing a tier 1 unit. If you get a Dragon early enough and you have this spare slot, to have the buy, it can be pretty good. It's not great, though, until you tier it up, really. Like, you're outscaled by other units. But I'm not unhappy if I see a dragon. If I get an early dragon, like again, if you're at a tier 5 shop, you combine and get the tier 6 dragon, I will probably take a punt at it. I'll have a lark at it. This being said and done, I think though you're in sandwich tier as well. You're at the top end of sandwich tier. You're something that could enable a win. But unfortunately you're outclassed by another creature that's going to come up later. Okay, so duck. This is going to be funny because again, the duck wasn't buffed or nerfed. The duck benefited greatly from a change to the way the game was played. So in the olden days, you used to have 4 health. Every loss counted as 1 loss. If you lost 4, you die. You're out. This meant the duck was hard to take because you're sort of guaranteeing a loss. Because you're buying a duck for the future. Again, just in case you didn't know, duck is tier 1 animal. It is a 1-2. If you sell it, it buffs everything in the shop +1/+1. Which is nice. You're buying now for the future. And there are some nice little things you can do. Like you can buy a duck. You sell the duck and maybe, you buy a peacock or something and it gets another health. So it can trigger its hurt more likely. And that's nice. But it wasn't worth, paying for maybe a loss or even 2 losses, depending on how long you held the duck. Now that it's changed that you have 10 life and you lose health equal to the tier shop you're on, up until 3 when it's then 3 consistently, it doesn't matter if you lose the first 2 games. They count less than 1 loss in the old variant. So the duck honestly grew up in ranks. I now rate duck in the brew technology tier. It's also not a bad unit to buy and sell. It's better than the beaver because, you're buffing things in the shop that you might... Oh, I'd say it's better than the beaver for that. It's pretty good compared to the beaver early on for doing that. Late on, you probably want the beaver because your squad is settled. But early, buy a duck, sell a duck, put 1/1 stats across the board, and then just buy out your shop. It's a very strong, build from going to either turn 2 to turn 3 or 3 to 4, where I think it is, insanely strong. I'm never sad to see a duck anymore. And I think your brew technology. By the way, on the tier up, I think it just becomes sells to 2 for everything and sells to 3 for everything, maybe. But it's super rare that I'd ever do that. Yeah, it's 2 to everything and 3 to everything. Again, I would probably never do that. I would buy the 2 ducks separately, don't combine them, and then sell both of them. Plus you get the 2 gold back, which is, nothing to sniff at early on. Right, elephant. You're going to suffer the same fate of the blowfish, basically. You have basically no uses because the hurt synergy is so weak, I think, that you're just outclassed by everything else. Elephant, you are a tier 3 creature? No, tier 2. Man, my tier 2-3 meta is very wrong right now. I think I get confused because you get tier 2 on turn 3 and I often combine for a 3rd unit to get a tier 3 unit. But Elephant is a 3/5 and its effect is before it attacks it hurts the unit behind. I.e. it does 1 damage to it. I would love to believe in you, Elephant. But I just don't believe in you. You're going to go in the Gazpacho tier, I think. For one reason and one reason alone. I can put you in slot 5, and then you're just good stats early on. And that might win you some rounds early on. So literally, you're there for the niche example of, I need a 5th animal, I'll stick you at the back. I think it's very rare that, Elephant in front of Camel, which is probably its best synergy, is worth it. Same with Elephant in front of Peacock, I don't think it's worth losing the health over. If the Elephant was instead proc the hurt trigger but didn't do any damage, then I think you could, consider running the Elephant, in front. But often I don't think doing 1 damage on the hurt trigger is worth it. It's kind of weird. Because, again, early on your units probably at maximum have 7 health. And that's, being nice. It's probably more likely to be 4 to 6. If you hit the unit once at, 5 health, you drop it to 4 health. Sure, you get the proc on the Peacock that might put it onto maybe, 3 attack. But you're probably going to get one-shot then by a fish. Which is almost certainly combined with 2 other fishes at that point. It just doesn't work. And then it doesn't really scale well into the end game. Because you're going to start hitting melon armor and breaking your own melon armor, which obviously is not great. And melon armor is so strong. You're frankly better putting garlic on a unit with a hurt trigger than taking an elephant. And that's just where I feel. You're only not going into ice tier because, as I said, you're just raw stats. And I like your stat line. Right, fish. Fish, again, is another tier 1 unit, but I'm happy to see it. You probably are going to go somewhere around the duck tier. So fish is a 2-3 tier 1 unit. When it levels up, everything on the board gets +1/+1. So you're like the duck, but I need 3 of you. But you're also just great stats. So I think I'm going to put you ahead of the duck. Just because of the stats alone. If you were a 1-2, and you had, like, you know, the level up effect, you would definitely be behind the duck, because you're harder to make active. And in fact, you would probably be way down if that was the case. Because you're not, you're fine. By the way, when it levels up, it gives +2 across the board. Then I think it's +3, if I remember rightly. Again, fish is something I don't normally level all the way. Ah, no, it's not +3. It's just +2 on the final level. Interesting. Okay, so it's +1 then +2 to everything. There is a neat synergy, and by synergy, I mean a neat strategy, I suppose, where rather than combining, like, you know, you get your level 2 fish. Rather than combining everything into that fish, you can combine again into a different stack of fish. Try and get another tier 2 fish on that, which will then give another +1 across the board. And then you combine those 2 tier 2s together and get another +2 across the board. That is probably the strongest thing you can do with the fish, but again, you need a lot of fishes early on to make that happen. But that dream is super nice. But yeah, I think this is where we put fish. You're a good early game unit. You're going to not lose too many early rounds, picking up a bunch of fishes. And it's going to help you into the mid game. Very nice unit. Flamingo. Flamingo out of this list. No. Honestly, I don't want to be mean to the Flamingo. You're not a bad unit, but you're not a great unit. Flamingo is a 3-1 that death rattles effectively to give +1/+1 to the 2 units behind it. In that regard, you're like a 5-3, which means you're like the elephant in stats. But you're actually more beneficial because you can put stats on units that are better. Like, you might put melon armor or something, not melon armor necessarily, but garlic on a unit behind it. In which case it gets a bit more value out of the +1 health. Or maybe it does have a hurt trigger, and so on. So it has more uses than the elephant. So you're definitely not in Gazpacho tier. Honestly though, the best example of you is like the ant. You use it early on and then pill it. But unfortunately, like the ant, you don't come out early enough, I think, to have you very high. So I think you're in this tier. You're probably just ahead of the camel. I think you're in sandwich tier. I just want to check what tier you're actually at. Just in case I'm, again, telling lies. You're a tier 2 animal. Again, if you get it on round 3, you're probably happy for it. The more and more I think about it, the more and more you are just like an ant. But I value ants so much more. I think I'm going to stick with this. I think it does matter that you typically get that on, like, best the 3rd round, but more likely you're going to see it on 4 or 5. And at which point, you know, buying this and pilling it, I do it a lot. It's not really worth it unless you've got a summon trigger as well, or a buy trigger. Because you're spending 4 gold for 2/2 in stats. It's like an expensive pair. Admittedly, you can't get a pair early on. But you're not bad because of it. Again, it's another unit you can just throw out for a turn and be happy with it. The ideal dream is that you pill it to get rid of it rather than sell it. Yeah, I'm happy enough for you to be there. Right. Here comes the difficulty. The fly. So, the fly is a unit that if any unit dies, it basically gets the death rattle of summon a 2/2 fly. With the exception of the 2/2 fly. Which, you know, it doesn't go infinite is what I'm saying. The fly is a very strong animal. It enables a... Oh, by the way, when it levels up, it produces the 4/4 fly, then a 6/6 fly instead. It's very strong when combined with a turkey. And maybe this is how I have to rate it. I have to rate this build. Because it's in 2 very specific builds. Either fly turkey or fly shark builds. Where you get lots of death triggers, which makes the shark eat. Or you summon a bunch of flies and the turkey buffs the summons. It's arguably a... Again, I don't know how you like hear these builds. It's probably in a tier 1 build. Like, I think it's a little bit shy of just getting pure stats. But if you can get like a rooster on it as well, where you have a mixture of like summons plus insane stats, it could possibly be the strongest build. But on its own, it's not great. But it's not awful either. You're in probably Ghost Chili tier, but I think you're behind... Well... Really, I kind of need another tier, just where it just says this build in particular is very strong, but the unit part of this build is not great. The fly itself, though, is not the worst thing. Like, again, if you pick a fly up late on just at the 5th slot position, you literally have nothing else to have. At the very worst, it might pop a melon armor. You might get a lucky kill with it. That's about it for it, though. But you're probably not going to pop a melon armor. It's very unlikely, because your melon armor unit will trade with their melon armor unit. If yours eventually dies, they will have already had their melon armor removed. It's basically like a little stat ad. I really don't know how to value this. Again, it's not something you pick up all the time. It's something that you can turn to when your times are hard. If your build just hasn't scaled fast enough and you're feeling like a bit behind the curve, if you get a shot where you just suddenly see a fly and a turkey, just pivot to it and hope and pray. I think I have to rate this as, the best possible outcome. In which case, I'm going to put you around the dodo, I guess. You sort of enable the build in front. In fact, I'll put you behind the dodo. You enable a specific build. And that's where you're best. And that build is very strong. But on its own, it's not fantastic. You could argue as well that you could use it in like a horse build, but horse build is worse than turkey build, so... You can also do some weird stuff, with like a tiger combined as well to get a double effect and get 2 flies instead. Sure, maybe that helps, but again, I think in the late game getting like, 2 2/2s, it's just +4 in stats, it's really not that worth. But we'll leave you there. Giraffe. You're the animal with the best sound effect when it's summoned. You just say, giraffe. You give +1/+1 to the unit in front. You are a tier... What tier are you? Tier 3, I think? Yeah, you're a tier 3, 1/3. When you level, you give 2 friends ahead +1/+1, and at 3, it's 3 friends in front. Which is not bad scaling. It's one of the few units that scales very early and provides its stats to another unit. You are restricted that you have to put it behind a unit. For a few turns, though, it's not bad. Is it great? No. Would I pick it up if I need to in like a temporary measure? Yes. I think you're in the sandwich tier. Like if I can pick up a giraffe and put it behind a dodo for a while, that can be really nice. If you put it behind, I guess, a blowfish, that can be fine. Anything with hurt triggers. You're very similar to the flamingo. Like I might just put you out there temporarily, but I don't have the requirement that I need a pill to get any benefit thereafter. You'll permanently give me the benefit. Therefore, you might actually go ahead of the flamingo, but I actually think I'm still going to value slightly behind it, because you normally do get a pill early on. Okay. We have the... Are you actually just called the gorilla? I think you are called the gorilla. Yes, you are called the gorilla. You are 6'6". Your coconut gun, it fires in spurts. Every time it's hurt, you get a coconut shield. Coconut shield ignores damage once. It doesn't matter how much damage it is, it ignores it. So, coconut armor is the best armor. It's better than melon armor. Unfortunately, it's tied to a hurt trigger, which really limits it. It's so hard in the endgame to get a hurt trigger on it. Like, your best bet for a gorilla is if you can get it to 50-50 with melon armor, it can't die, so it takes a hit. You get coconut armor, so you get another trade off it, and then it probably dies after that. I think there's no reason you would put like an elephant in front of this to get the hurt trigger going. I don't think you put a hedgehog in front of it to get the hurt trigger going. Although they're interesting things to think about. The other problem with the gorilla, honestly, is that it's a tier 6 creature. And by the way, the coconut armor can only proc once at level 1, then twice at level 2, I think, and then thrice at level 3. Is that how it works? I don't even know. They might even change that. I'm like looking at the notes right now and it says that it works 1 time every time. But I don't think that is the case. I think it works twice in the next tier because I believe it has a level effect. I might be wrong. If it's not, honestly, that would be a good change for it. It's so rare that I pivot into the gorilla because you're so late, your stats are so low that I can't justify swapping you out for like, I don't know. Realistically, the point that tier 6 creatures come out, I might have like a 20/20 out. I can't swap a 20/20 for a 6/6. Realistically, the only situation where I might do that is if I've turbo scaled a unit already, and like maybe I've got them way above the curve, and they might be like 30, 40, and then I just put you in there and start giving you some buffs, and accept that I've got some lives to give, and you'll be stronger in the future for it. Because of this, again, this might be unpopular, I'm going to put you in Gazpacho tier. I think on your own, you're fine, and I think you could be buffed to be very viable, and I think you have a very good shot to shoot up this tier list if you're ever buffed. What buff would I give him? I'd give him more stats. Just, like, considerably more stats. It's so hard to, like, justify buying you and statting you up. I think you just have to start with a bit more, like, oomph in him. Maybe even, like, I don't know. Screw it. Go balls to the wall. Make him 10-10. I don't think that's unreasonable. That gives him a little bit of a head start. Justifies you maybe trading 10-10 of stats away for his effect. And I think that can justify it. By the time you've got this guy to 2020, the fastest like scaling units you can reasonably expect, unless you get an insane run, is like 5-5. You might have a T-Rex plus a monkey. It's going to take you, you know, 3 turns to replace that 2020, and that's potentially 9 health when it's... I mean, it will be 9 health by the time it comes out. So unless you've had a perfect run until the gorilla comes out, you're not going to use it. So yeah, Gazpacho tier. Hedgehog. Oh, Hedgehog, Hedgehog, Hedgehog. I want your dream to work. I want you to enable the pufferfish and to be a legitimate endgame working strategy. I would like you to be an early game winning strategy, but you're not. That being said, you have got some niche examples again where you're useful, but I think you're just a worse badger. Therefore, you're going into the ice tier. Behind... Honestly, I think you're the worst unit I've rated right now. Your niche example is that you run into a horse build and you just, you know, you death rattle and kill everything. That's your niche example. You work against the worst build in the game. By the way, Hedgehog, for those that don't know, you are a tier... I'm mixing up, it's 2 or 3. It's tier 2. It's a 3-2, it death rattles and does 2 damage to every unit on the board. About every unit? Yeah, it's every unit. When it tiers up, it's 4 then 6. So this can enable the hurt triggers. If you have an entire fill of hurt triggers, you'll pop all the hurt triggers, and you'll feel very smug with yourself until you realise you've also taken 2 health off them. So it was barely worth it. You've gained like +1 attack, you dealt 2 damage to one of their units. It's really not worth it. If the blowfish was better, the hedgehog would also become better. The other issue with the hedgehog actually is when it tiers up and does, you know, 4 damage to all units and 6 damage to all units instead. If you're doing a hurt trigger build, you don't want to tier it up, because you don't want to hurt the fish more. You just want to trigger it once. Therefore, it's better to buy 2 hedgehogs rather than, like, you know, 2 tier 2 hedgehogs. So your scaling is not great. You don't really, like, get growth spikes. In theory, I know this would be, again, a niche scenario for it. I would either like it to go down in damage. So, to say, it starts off as, you know, maybe it does 3 damage to all units. Or maybe it stays 2. Yeah, let's just keep it as 2 damage to all units. You level it up, it does 1 damage to all units. Now, you're not going to snipe as many of their units, but you're still popping melon armor if it's late game. And you're popping your hurt triggers, but not doing a ton of damage to them. And then maybe it goes to no damage, but triggers hurt triggers. The alternative is that maybe it does damage and triggers hurt triggers twice. Something a bit like that, to enable that, like, build. But I just don't like you. I just think you're too weak. I guess, again, niche late game scenarios. You can run into a Scorpion, and a lot of people are running Scorpions now in slots 2 and 3. Because almost everyone runs a melon armor unit in slot 1. So you might be able to snipe a juicy fat in a unit. If you run a hedgehog at the front, you could snipe a Scorpion, because a Scorpion is a 1-1 with it. However, most people now have realised that the Scorpion is getting sniped by Dolphin, so they're now putting stats onto the Scorpion and making them like 21-21s of the dreams. So the hedgehog is then useless again. So yeah, just... I think you're ice tier. Hippo! You're a tier 4 animal, correct? Correct. You're a 4-7. Your effect is, if you knock a unit out, you gain +2/+2. Then, if you level up, it's +4/+4, then +6/+6. You are incredible against token builds. Any build that summons a bunch of units, again, you're looking at the horse here, which is the worst build, you will just munch on them. Like, if it's a cricket like with honey on it or something, and it summons a 1-1 and a 1-1 cricket, you just go munch, 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 and you just keep growing and growing and growing, and you just, like, you can have a hippo, and everyone's done this, they'll run a hippo at the front, and it will literally have wiped out someone's squad. However, it's garbage most of the times. His effect doesn't scale well. Like, at the end game, you're probably going to hit a unit twice before dying, and it's very unlikely you knock out on the first approach, and if you do knock out on the first approach, who cares about +2/+2? You honestly come into the game too late into the day, and you block the worst strategy. The other problem you've got, and again, this will allude to later, I think there's a creature better at you with your equivalent effect. Therefore, Hippopotamus, I'm going to put you into Gazpacho tier. You have a niche example where you work well, and that is it. I might move Gazpacho around a little bit. Honestly, I'm probably more likely to buy a hippo and a badger than a gorilla, which is a sad thing to say. I'm probably more likely to buy an elephant, but I'm just down to put the elephant in front of the gorilla. I think there are examples where I can justify the gorilla gaining stats. The hippo is something I might buy for a turn and be happy with it, with the niche example, but then I get rid of it. Again, take some of this with a pinch of salt, or at least, you know, you have to watch through the video and get the full picture. I'm not saying I think the hippo is better than the gorilla, even though I've got it on the tier list that way. It's more likely to be bought, be useful, and then, like, it's fine when you stat it up. Or it's fine in a late game build, so it's just basically good if you stat it up. The gorilla is probably better if you stat it up, but it's not as good when it comes out. Although, actually, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to put you there. Actually, I think the gorilla is better than you. It comes out, it's 2 shots later, but if you run into a summon build with a gorilla, the gorilla can actually do some work as well. At least a bit of work. Honestly, you three, like the gorilla, the badger, and the hippo, you're kind of similar. You have very niche examples, and that's about it. I think this is the more correct way there. But they're like, the overlapping, they're very close. Horse. Welcome, horse, to the solid CO2 tier. The horse is, in my opinion, the worst tier 1 unit. It almost guarantees a loss early on. Its build, which is, you know, summoning lots of little critters, is hard countered by some of the worst units in the game, and some of the best units in the game, which is very unfortunate. Like, the hippo at the front will just dominate horse builds, a rhino will dominate a horse build, a hurt build will dominate a horse build. It's just so unfortunate they just don't, you know, scale well into the end game. You really need a turkey or something, or a fly to enable that, and they're both so late into the game that by that point, you've lost, because you're running a horse. Just so you didn't, in case people didn't know, the horse is a 1-1 unit. If you summon a unit, it gains 1 attack for that turn. When it levels up, it's 2 attack, then 3 attack. Now, if that was a permanent attack buff, the horse, I think, shifts up the tier. Because it's temporary, you get the advantage for just that turn, but then you get the disadvantage the turn afterwards that you're running a 1-1, and not a 2-3, which is like the average of all other tier 1 units. It's awful. It needs a buff. What buff would I give it? I'd either make it stat permanent, or I would make its stats better. Like, make it a 2-2. You know? I think you can. Like, if the ladybug can, you know, someone can eat food and it gets 1 attack, I think you can justify the horse getting a bit stronger. That being said, someone has to lose in the tier 1 animals, and it's the horse at the moment. Kangaroo. Skippy. Okay. Skippy is a very good unit. So, if a unit in front of it attacks, I think is what it's named as. You know what, I want to read actually what this says. I know what it does, but I don't know exactly how to describe it. You're a tier 3, 2-3. Yeah, friend ahead attacks, you gain +2/+2. Then it's +4/+4 on a tier up, and then +6/+6. Again, you have similarities to the crab, but I don't think you are as good as the crab. But you're there or thereabouts. I think you're in the same tier, but a bit further behind it. In fact, you might... Okay, something weird is going on there. I think you might be behind the crab. So you have exactly the same thing as the crab. You have a unit in front with a lot of stats, and you sort of pseudo-gain those stats because it survives longer early game. That this keeps buffing up and up and up. And then you're just, you're happy. You know what, I've decided you're not in this tier. I've just thought, you're probably around here. I think you're here. So you strongly rely on the unit in front of you. You don't get the definite stats like the crab. So I think you're worse than the crab in that regards. But you do gain attack. And everyone's seen these builds before where, someone gets an insanely strong dog or something like they'll have a 30-30 dog like by turn 7. And then there's a kangaroo behind it and they've been scaling the kangaroo maybe a little bit slowly with food. And you're just taking ages to get through this garlic dog and the kangaroo is growing and growing and growing. And they just dominate the rest of your team. The kangaroo makes a good thing better, is what I'd say. But it never pulls you from behind. And honestly, it doesn't scale well into the end game. But it does let you get to the end game. It's one of the few units that I think just dominates through the middle game. And you're typically pretty happy to see it. So, I'm going to put you in Brute here. I probably undervalue you, though. I don't use you that often. In fact, I don't feel like I see you that often. But you are a good animal. I'll give you that. Right, Leopard. You're a tier 6 creature. Correct? Correct. You're a tier 6 creature. You're a 6/4. The start of the battle, you do 50% attack damage to a random enemy. When you tier up, you do it to 2 random enemies, and then to 3 random enemies. So basically, on a summon, you're 6/3 and you snipe randomly for 3. Which isn't great. You're worse than the crocodile when, it comes out. Where I'm going to give you a bit of, credit, and by the way, you're only going to go into the tier 1 up. You're in Gazpacho tier. Is that if you can tier up the leopard as well when sniping, then your chance of hitting a perfect unit is then 2/5. Rather than with the crocodile where it might be impossible. You have a 2/5 chance of maybe sniping a unit. Then it's 3/5 of 60%. It's not guaranteed, which is why you're still low tier. But you do have some uses. The stipulation of not having a unit at the back makes it hard to play around. But not as guaranteed as the Dolphin, which I think is just a better sniper. So I'm going to run you in, I think, Gazpacho. It's a unit, again, I just pick up, run it for a while, and just sell it again. That's really all I've got to say about you. You're obviously good if you can scale you, but being a tier 6 creature sort of hinders you a lot. What changes would I make to the leopard? Either I buff its stats again. I think a lot of the tier 6 animals are actually understated. That really makes it hard to justify using them. The alternative is I'd pull it down a tier. I think that could be a tier 5 animal. I also think it could be a tier 4 animal and no one would complain. Realistically, are you worse than the Dolphin? When you're, at tier 4? I think you are. So you could be a tier 4 creature. I might combine the two. I might pull it down a tier and give it a bit more oomph. And I hope they do make some changes to some of these animals. Honestly, from what I've seen from this game so far, the devs seem more than willing to make changes to, packs. And that will keep the game fresh and, replayable. Right. I actually don't know what you're called. I think you're just called Mammoth. Well, are you Mammoth? Yes, just a Mammoth, not Woolly Mammoth. You're a 2/6 tier 6 animal. You faint and give all friends +2/+2. You faint and give all friends +4/+4. Then you faint and give friends +6/+6 on each level. Again, like a lot of tier 6 animals, you're understated. Now, I do appreciate that if you run it at the front, you're giving 4 units +2/+2. That's +8/+8. Which makes you a 14, sorry. Which isn't bad. So I don't think you're the worst tier 6 animal. But I think you're in sandwich tier. The best scenario for the Mammoth is you get one early on turn 5. You run it as a temporary slot. And then you pill it. And get the stats across the board. But when you think about that, you're just the snail but with strings attached. Now, I know the snail has some big strings attached, but the snail comes out 3 turns earlier. And by 3 turns, I mean 3 shop turns earlier. It's insane, the difference. What would I do to change this? I'd make its stats a bit higher. Unlike the death rattle. I'd make it +3/+3, +6/6, +9/9. And I think then, you're talking about moving this up a bit. I don't think you'll ever be a very high tier, though. You don't really enable anything. Your other problem is if you have 50/50s anyway, who cares about getting +2/+2? Because the cap's 50/50, so it literally doesn't matter. You can tell by the way this list is going on so long. It's getting dark outside. So let me flick on some lighting. There we go. Actually, I look worse now. I guess it's because the light is literally above me. It's casting a shadow. It's alright. But yeah, the mammoth is okay. I think compared to some of the tier 6 animals, it has a use which is more usable. But again, you're never going to run it into the end game. I don't think I've ever seen a squad win with a mammoth in it. Like, they probably have had one at one point, or maybe they have one at one point, but not by the end. Monkey. You are a unit that buffs the front unit for +2/+2. If it tiers up, it becomes +3/+3, correct? Again, I'm going to have to check this. You'd think by now, after like many hours... No, it's +4/+4, then +6/+6. Holy moly, it is way stronger than I thought. The monkey, honestly, is S tier. I think it's above the dodo. And by S tier, I mean Ghost Chili tier. The ability to give a unit +2/+2 when it comes out, which is tier 4, by the way, is so strong. It's a free pair every single turn. Your only restriction is it has to be at the front. Now, that is bad for the dodo, where like it needs a unit in front of it, so you can't buff the dodo with a monkey easily. But the real strength of the monkey is if you get 2 of them. Now, you're always going like, Andalono, if you combine them, that doesn't matter. No. I've mentioned a few times, I think the strongest way to play this game is to have 3 buffed units, then like 2 flex, so like a utility and a flex. If in the mid game you can pick up 2 monkeys, you can scale a unit at the front for 4/4. Don't combine them, keep them separate. And that is the strongest scaling I think you can get in this game. It is so busted. So like if you can get 2 monkeys, a caterpillar, honestly it doesn't matter what the other units are at that point. It can be anything. Like you can run the hippo for all it matters. And you just keep piling the stats on the hippo, and then maybe behind it's a crab. You're going to win 10 games, because you're going to outpace everyone else. Anyone that's going to make these like intricate builds where like they're hurting people, you're going to steamroll over them. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Just steamroll over your enemy. The best enabler of steamrolling is monkey. It honestly might be the highest rated. The only reason I'm not going to say it is because I think the rooster, like a 50/50 rooster, might be the best creature in the game, especially at level 3. So I'm going to leave you behind the rooster, but you, if I see you, I buy you. Unless it's super late. If I don't see you, like, I guess early enough, then I might not take you. If I've already got a tier 6 enable, then I'm not going to purchase you. But other than that, like, even endgame I might buy you still. You're great. Mosquito. You're a 2/2 tier 1 unit that deals 1 random damage to a unit. When you tier up, it's 2, and then it's 3. You are the second worst tier 1 unit, in my opinion. And I'm going to slot you into Gazpacho tier. Probably at the tail end of it as well, actually. Now, there is another way of looking at the Mosquito. The Mosquito is a 3/2, but you don't get hit for 1 of the attack damage. In that regard, you can cancel out with the fish, but then it sort of treats it as like having no effect then. So I think in every way you're worse than the fish. I think you're worse than the cricket as well, by a considerable margin. Again, there are niche examples. You might snipe an ant, because it has 1 health. You might snipe a horse, but if you're running horse, you're going to lose to all the other builds anyway, so who cares about sniping horses? You might snipe a 3 health enemy that lets you trade with a Mosquito. They're all ideal scenarios, but they don't really pull you over the edge. They just sort of like level you up again. And that's kind of my issue with the Mosquito. That being said, if you accidentally run a 50/50 Mosquito into the end game, you might snipe a Scorpion, but more realistically, you might snipe Melanan, which actually could win you a round. So you're not actually giga awful, but I think you're pretty close to it. I hate to say this, but I'd probably value around the Badger somewhere. Maybe just ahead of the Badger. For something that I'd buy and then maybe keep. But realistically, it's one of my number 1 first tier units I'll just sell. Unless I've triplicated you and like I can't justify selling you because of the stats. That's where we are with you. You then might survive for a bit longer. But it's very rare that I try to run a 50/50 Mosquito. The Otter. Otter, if you buy it, it gives +1/+1 to a random unit. You are in Brew tier. No doubt in my mind. The question is, are you better than the duck? So, the scenarios for are you better than the duck? So, one of the neat things you can do with Otter, and I don't think a lot of people know this, is on the tier up, it becomes a +2/+2. And you might be saying, like, Andalono, how do you tier it up and buy it to give you +2/+2? You combine it. So if you get an otter, it gives +1/+1 to a random unit. You combine it with another otter that gives it, +1/+1 to another unit. And they're on the, the half level. If you buy the third one and immediately put it on top of the otter, you get +2/+2 from that bought otter. That's how you get the tier up. So you can get a very strong stat line if you can just keep buying the otters. For that reason alone, I honestly think you might be better than the duck. You're then just a 1/2/1 tier 1 unit, which actually puts you into the fish tier when you take into account the fact that, you've buffed the unit for 1/1. So I think you're honestly around the fish. You're around this tier. But I think you scale a bit better than the fish, maybe. If you can keep combining these, getting +2/+2s. And it's pretty reliable, so... I think you're around here, but again, I think you could flip these two around pretty easily and be justified for it. It really depends. If you don't get... In fact, I think we do have it this way round. In fact, I think I have it this way round. I think if you can get like 3 otters, it's better than getting 3 fishes. I know this sounds counterproductive because, the stats will split across the board. So for that moment, you're better off with the fish. But if you can get all the stats into one creature, again, it's a lot of ifs, I suppose, for the otter. Which, again, will probably justify why you're behind the fish. But you can really stat out one unit, and then you're going to keep that unit for its stats later on, and you sell the other ones. It kind of gives you directionality, I think. It's very unlikely that I found to get, like a level 3 fish as well. Whereas then every otter after that, you buy it and it gives +2/+2, +2/+2. Until you get to tier 3 where you can't do that anymore, and frankly, you sell the otter. But yeah, I think you're around here. Honestly, duck, otter, fish do very similar things. If you get a lot of fish, you're happy. If you get a lot of otters, you're happy. If you get a lot of ducks, you're pretty content. But I think I'll order it like this. I think I've gone through like every single tier 1 animal now. And you may have noticed from like this. Tier 1 animals I rate pretty highly. I think a lot of the tier 1 animals are better than their tier 2 counterparts. And I'm normally pretty happy just to run tier 1 animals through to tier 3. I think tier 3 is where you get the next jump. Maybe with the exception of like the dog. And the crab, I suppose. They're very strong. But the rest of them, down here somewhere. Right. Ox. You are, if a friend in front of you dies, you gain melon armor. And +2 attack? Yes. +2/+0. Then when you tier up, it's +4 and then +6. Okay. Ox. I really like you. I think you're an easy to take early game unit. I think you're in Brew tier as well. And honestly, I think I'm going to rate you around the Kangaroo. You're very similar to the Kangaroo in the sense that you scale somewhat, but you're a lot easier to enable because literally all I need is an animal in front of you. Getting Melon Armor gives you a free hit, and often I feel like you can get the Ox to have like maybe 2 Death Rattle triggers in front. It becomes like a 7 something. Like if you put a sheep in front or a spider in front, you get 2 death triggers in front of you. Maybe even more if the spider produces a ram. And you'll get a Melon Armor hit for like 7+ attack. Which at this stage of the game, if you have a unit that's just like, deals 7 damage to a unit, it's game over. So I honestly think the Ox is very strong. You might even be stronger than the Kangaroo, but I'm going to keep you here for now. And again, it's one of those units that you can legitimately run pretty late into the game. It can take you through the mid-game. I think it's excellent at it. I'm always happy if I combine 3 units on the 3rd turn and it gives me an Ox. I'm like, yes, let's go. If I combine my 3 units and get, a Blowfish, I'm like, abandon. Just end me. Okay. Next, the Parrot. You copy the unit in front ability until the end of battle, and it's on the end of turn effect. Okay. I'm sure, again, there are some niche scenarios where this is genius. And we've definitely had runs where we've run the Parrot, and it's been pretty nice. Like a parrot behind a shark, so it starts scaling up. Yeah, that's nice, that's nice. What else could you run in front of it and copy the ability? I'm not sure, actually, what the best things are. You don't work with the scaling units, fortunately. Oh, a fly is another thing. Copy the fly ability, and then you can become a pseudo-tiger. But most of the time, you'd rather just have the tiger in front instead. So, parrot, I'm going to put you in ice tier. I think you have niche examples where you're worthwhile. But that's about it. I'm going to put you at the top of ice tier. Okay, the peacock. By the way, I don't think you level up. I should check that, actually. Again, you're a unit I think I would never, ever level up. And I basically only ever run you temporarily. Ah, it copies the ability at level 1, sorry, and then copies it at level 2, then level 3. It's irrelevant. You're never going to run a tier... Well, no, I'm not going to say never. It's unlikely you're ever going to get a level 3 parrot. By the way, it's a tier 5 animal, so you get it very late into the game. And it's only a 2-3. So, it basically gets crushed by everything. So you really, you know... You're betting on getting an effect, and the effect really has to be like a battle cry-like effect, or a passive effect, or a death rattle effect. Otherwise... you gain no benefit. And at that point in the game, really you just want stats. And it isn't stats, so... sorry. Peacock. Again, this might be an unpopular opinion. The peacock, I am going to drop into Gazpacho tier. I think this is the baitiest of the baity animals. And by a considerable margin. Honestly, I think I'm going to run you around here. Now, everyone sees it. They go, the peacock. Oh, wow, you're like a 1-5, I think you start as. So, unlike a lot of the hurt animals, your stats are actually favourable. You've got it mainly in the health department. Or at least, you know, almost all of it is in the health department. Yeah, you're a 1-5. You're tier 2. So, you know, you're going to survive a hit, probably, at this point. Then you're going to become a 3... whatever, 3x. By the way, its hurt trigger gives it 2 attack, then 4 attack, then 6 attack. Which is nice. You're going to trade probably... You're probably going to trade with someone, like a guaranteed trade. And this is my problem with the peacock. It's basically just a trade machine. And you really need to trade plus to win this game. I think early on, it's fine to hold on to a peacock for a while. If you try to run this into the end game, I've almost always come up short. Like, the peacock just doesn't do it for me. Again, this might be confirmational bias. In theory, if you can get a ton of health on it and put a crab behind it, like, it could pop. And you get garlic on it, it's going to probably pop. But it doesn't really scale very well into the very, very end game. Like, who cares about the +2 attack? You're only going to survive, like, a hit anyway. And you're probably going to hit the hurt trigger anyway because, you know, you're going to be meloned or something. It just doesn't matter. I honestly think you're the biggest bait in the game. I might be being a bit mean to you because of it, because you're probably just an average creature. But the amount of times I bought you and invested into you and you've not paid off, you're sitting in Gazpacho. Would I prefer you over a badger? Honestly, I don't know. You've hurt me. Like all birds, you're a bit of an arsehole. That's what I'm going to say about you. Speaking of which, we come to the penguin. Penguin, you're a scaling unit. You give +1/+1 to a unit that is level 2 or higher. Then, as you level up, I think you give it a +2/+2 and then +3/+3. But again, you're another creature. Oh, and by the way, you're tier 4. Yes. So it's very rare for you to get tiered up to level 3. It's nice if you get it onto level 2, but it doesn't buff itself. It's only other friends for that. So it can't self-scale. And it's only a 1-2, but it doesn't matter if that's your scaling unit. You kind of accept that for these, you know, your last slot. I honestly think you're okay. I'm happy enough to see you. Scaling is king at the end of the day. Are you a microwavable meal? Are you the tier below the monkey? I don't think you are. I think you're in the brew tier. You have a little bit too much of a restriction attached to you. In fact, I'm going to put you ahead of the fish. Normally, by the point you get to a tier 4 animal, you'll be running something that is level 2, at which point you're just a giraffe, but without the restriction of the giraffe. The niche scenarios, again, where you might have 2 creatures, I think bumps it up a level than the giraffe. And then, you don't have the strings attached to, you know, you have to have another slot. You can just leave it there, slowly plinking away, giving health and health. I've had runs where we've gone 50-50 with a penguin. You don't scale particularly quickly, I'll give you that, but I think you're good enough. You're at least good enough to hold on to until you get a monkey, so I guess you're fine. Aha, we had a tier 1 animal left. I forgot, a pig. So the pig is a tier 1 animal. It's 2-2. You sell it, it sells for 1 extra gold. Then I think as you tier it up, it's like 2 extra gold and 3 extra gold maybe. Let me just check that. Again, yes, it's 3 extra gold. As you can tell by the fact I don't run it at tier 3 and it is a tier 1 animal, I don't rate it too highly. But you are good in buy-sell. You're a great creature to sell. You enable the dragon very well. So you kind of... You have to be in the same tier as the dragon. I think you're at the back end of a sandwich. You, on the board, are not as good as a mosquito, but it's kind of like... You're a worse mosquito, but you cost less because you're probably going to sell it on anyway. So you're effectively costing 2 for 2-3. Sorry, 2 for 2-2 in stats. You're like a temporary pair. But you normally prefer a unit than a pair. But early game, it's not awful. It's not great. You're actually the quintessential average unit, I think. You probably define the sandwich tier, which is fantastic because, you know, bacon butter is delicious. Therefore, you're in the sandwich tier. What I'm learning as well from just looking at this, way more foods than I remember. I thought there's like very few foods. There's actually quite a lot. Rabbit. If a friend eats food, it's actually a friend or is it's anyone eats food? I want to just check again to get this exactly right. We don't have to do this again for a while. Yeah, it's just friend eats shop food. So it's not another friend, it's just a friend. You give it +1 health. Then at tier 2 it's +2, then at tier 3 it's +3. Again, health is very key early on. And because the crab is so dominant right now, I kind of have to rate the rabbit pretty dominantly too. Again, this is going to look suspect, but I'm going to put you in brood tier. I'm pretty high in the brood tier. Picture the scenario. You buy a early dog or something. Or even, sure, get a peacock. Just, you know, give it some love. You buy a crab. You buy a rabbit. You start feeding this peacock over and over again. And it's getting +0-1 on every food trigger. But that means that your crab is also getting +0-1. So you're basically giving units +0-2 every time you buy food. Which is pretty nice, because you're, again, getting extra value off the crab. If the crab did not exist, the rabbit would not be as good as it is. It'd still be in the middle somewhere. Because, again, health is very nice. Surviving multiple hits, getting multiple hits of damage in. Especially if you can put, like, meat on an animal or something, so it survives a hit. Hits again for more than it normally would do. You're laughing. So, honestly, I value the plus health more than the plus attack. Which, again, if the horse was +1 attack permanently, I would not rate it in the middle. I still think it would be down here. But the rabbit with strings attached. I mean, I guess it has strings attached on the summon. But this strings attached +1 health, honestly, it's pretty useful. Rat. Rat. Where are the rats? I think you're going to join our friend Horse in the solid CO2 tier. I think you might be the worst creature. At least I can think of right now. Nope, you're not. I take that back. You're definitely in the worst tier, but I just remembered one other creature. So Rat is a tier 3. Tier 3? You're one of those things again that shows up around 2-3, and I don't remember which one you're in. Nope, you're tier 2. You're a tier 2 creature. You're a 4-5, which, you know, you think just raw stats. Great. If you faint, you summon a 1-1 dirty rat for your opponent that betrays them. At level 2, it's the same thing, and level 3 is the same thing, but the betray effect does an extra damage, I think, each time. The problem with this animal is you summon a creature for your opponent. So knock off the 1-1 stat from the rat. So it's effectively a 3-4. So you're like a swan, but with a, you know, no positive to it. The betray trigger would be fine, but the problem is that most people run at the back their scaling unit or something like that. And that's often a weak unit, so it's really irrelevant. It normally trades on the attack and then dies. You never get the betray effect off. And so many times early on have I picked up a rat. We've gone through the combat and all that was left was that dirty rat and they beat me because of it. For that one reason alone where it says the rat betrays them and it can beat you, it's going into the solid CO2 tier. Right, let's try and move this forward a little bit. Rhino. Rhino is if it kills a unit, it deals 5 damage to the unit in front. And that can proc on its deals 5 damage. It is a tier 5 animal, I believe. Where are you? Yes, you're a tier 5 creature. So, yes, knockout you do... Oh, it's 4, not 5. My apologies. When it levels up, it's 8 and then it's 12. The Rhino, again, don't shoot the messenger. You're just a better hippo. Rather than getting 2-2, you're just doing 5 damage. But you don't trade on the hit, so you don't take the health damage. Which is nice. So you're just literally a better hippo. You actually dominate the summon build. So for that niche scenario, you're definitely in the sandwich tier. I think you're high up in the sandwich tier. I think you're around here. Again, it's a creature though I don't run a lot. You come up so late that it's kind of hard to justify scaling you. Your stats aren't terrible. Like, you're a 5-6. It's not bad at tier 5. You can, like... If you're at tier 4 and you get a triple and you get a Rhino, you might want to run it and just, you know, have a lark. The other nice thing for the Rhino as well is if you can get it 50-50 with Melon and it trades against the creature and survives, you might break Melon on another unit behind it. Which is another niche scenario where it's quite advantageous. Which again is why you're not at the back end of the sandwich tier, because again, the summon build is pretty weak with the exception of the Fly Turkey builds, which again, it can dominate. If you can, you know, if you can get it to a tier 2, it will dominate that build. But because most of the time you see scaling builds, it just doesn't help that much. I'm going to put it in sandwich tier. You're one of the few creatures that has a scalable effect that can actually be beneficial. But it's really only beneficial against one build, and maybe another. Scorpion. Again, you're not going to like this, maybe. I think it's Ghost Chili tier. I think you're behind the... No, you're not behind the Fly. I'm going to put you here for now. I will put you behind the Fly. You, on your own, might be the most single great value unit in the game. Everything else you have to get to 50-50 by investing gold after gold after gold. The Scorpion is a tier 5 creature. It is a 1-1, and it has Death Touch, basically. If it does 1 damage, it kills a 50-50 unit. The amount of times I've, like, combined 3 units at tier 4, got a Scorpion, and then traded into, like, their 30-30 unit with, you know, Garlic Armor, and just immediately ruined their day. Magnifique. And the Scorpion created interesting metas for, like, orientating your squad. Because a lot of people will just run a Scorpion at the front, because it costs just 3 gold. It's 3 gold for potentially, you know, infinite damage, you know, 1 health. People would run it at the front, because, you know, they normally would run their hardest unit at the front. Then people put Melon Armor on the unit in front, which, you know, stops you getting hurt so you don't get death touched. So people started running it in slot 2 instead. Which then meant people started running snipers instead. And you got this little back forth of the meta, like, evolving around this one creature. I think the Scorpion has been possibly one of the best units for this game. I think it's fantastically balanced. I like as well that you have the benefit potentially. It doesn't gain the benefit on leveling, by the way. Which I wouldn't mind seeing it if it could get a benefit on leveling. I don't know what you do, but just give it some little value. Maybe even if it sort of like gains a bit of health, so it might survive a hit and hit another creature. Maybe like on a level it gains plus 10 health and plus 20 health. That would be kind of interesting. You know, like hardening its exoskeleton. Alternatively, if you wanted to be really bold, you could give it something like, it can hold, you know, 2 effects. So that you can, you know, live the dream of giving it like a 1-up or something, or giving it a chili pepper. Because everyone wants like Death Rattle, you know, revive, hit again and get the Death Rattle effect again. Or chili and hit the front 2 units. Both would be really interesting. But yeah, the dream for this is to get it to 21 health, then you can pierce through Melon Armor and kill a Melon Armor unit. So I really like this back and forth for the meta of this one creature and how it's like varied it. And again, for just the pure value, I don't think there's any unit that gets better value than the Scorpion. The only reason you're not like at the very top, because arguably you're probably, I think it depends again how you value this. It has a bit of like a cow-esque about it that it's a unit you might buy for a turn and just sell it again immediately and be, you know, happy with it. But it's not really meant for one build. You can just throw it in anywhere. So maybe the versatility, I'm just going to bump it up into one of the top 3 units. I really like it. I like it a lot. Seal. Correct? Not sea lion. Yes, you're a seal. You're a 3/6 tier 5 animal. If you eat food, you give 2 random friends +1/+1. If you tier up, it's +2/+2, and then again, it's +3/+3. I've never ever made you pop. This might be my fault, but if you're a tier down, I think I could justify you a little bit more. Your main problem is that the cat comes the tier afterwards. And the cat is just infinitely better than you. Because you get to choose where the health bonuses go on to, it's not random. I just have to feed this guy who's pretty weak to begin with. Now, I guess the dream is you get a cat plus a seal, but I've never really made that happen. That being said, I don't think you're completely like the dog tier. I think you're probably at the back end again a sandwich tier. You're kind of between sandwich Gazpacho. But you haven't got the ability to really be a unit. You know what? I think I'm going to put you at the head end of Gazpacho. Apologies, Seal. It makes my distribution look a little bit better as well this way. If you're a unit I could put out like a rabbit for one turn, buy a food and sell it again, you're fine. Because I have to put the buff on you, it kind of restricts you to being in my squad. Then you come so late that I can't justify putting you into my squad, and we all have a bad day. Normally, like, because the worm comes before you, which is also better, the cat comes after you, which is better, you just, unfortunately, like, the tier you're at just, limits you greatly. Now, if you had worse abilities and came out earlier, then we could be talking. You might actually move up the tier list. But I can't. Shark. Again, this is how do you take this? The Shark is arguably part of one of the strongest builds in the game. But I think it's the weaker variant of it. So if you get Shark plus Fly, and maybe like a Tiger behind the Fly, you can summon a bunch of creatures and get a 50-50 Shark at the end just to trade with the last unit. But I think that's worse than having Tiger Turkey Fly. I think that build beats it, but I could be wrong, maybe it doesn't. In fact, that'd be something interesting to investigate at some point. Because of that reason, I'm going to put the Shark at the back end of the microwavable tier. I think that's literally the only build that you benefit off. But you're not the worst. I should really, again, tell you what the Shark does. So it's a tier 5 creature. It's 4/4. If a friend faints, you get +2/+1. Then it's +4/+2, and then +6/+3. If you have 4 units in front of you at the base tier, that's at least then +8/+4. So it can effectively treat it as a 13/8, which makes it a very strong creature just coming out. It can be something you just throw out temporarily, and get the benefit for a turn, and then keep moving on. Rarely do I use it for that, but you can have these intermediate builds, and I've won again with Shark with like a whale in front of, I don't know, a sheep or something, and got tons of triggers. And then maybe had a Fly on top of that, and we just get this insane Shark at the end. The problem is I think you get just beaten by raw stats. If someone has a 50-50 at the tail end, you're just going to die to it. So for that reason, I think your build is worse than the other one. I'm going to put you microwave tier. Sheep. On the table, just by stats, you have to be a pretty good creature. You are a tier 3 animal again. You're a 2/2 that dies and summons 2 2/2s. And when you level up, it becomes a 4/4 and then a 6/6, if I remember rightly. I mean, a tier 3 6/6 is fantastic. You outstat basically everything, with maybe the exception of, the owl plus its, buff. But even then, you do outstat it. It's just that the owl can, be replaced. I think for that reason alone, it's such a nice standalone unit just to pick up and buy and put out there. It helps you go from early game to mid game. I think you're in the brew tier. I think you're around the fish. You enable other builds. You enable like the Shark build. You're nice with a whale. You're nice with horses if you're psychotic and running that. It's just a nice unit. So, there you are. You're in brew tier. I kind of noticed one thing, by the way. And we might have to come back to this in a moment. My tier list that I've picked is not the expansion pack. Where is my bat? Alright, we'll do the expansion pack next time as its own separate quick video. Or maybe I'll tag it onto the tail end of this one somehow. I don't know. We'll see. I'll do something. Anyway, just get back onto this one. Shrimp. Shrimp is buy me, sell me, boogie woogie build. If you sell a creature, a random unit gets +1 health. The amount of times I've tried to make this happen, and occasionally it does work, if you can get a crab plus a dog That's its perfect scenario. But again, it's a pretty niche scenario. I value around the elephant, I think. But maybe a little bit higher. I'd probably buy a shrimp more often than like any animal in here. He's also only a 2-1. When he tiers up, I think it's then +2 health, then +3 health. I think you're in here somewhere. If you had better stats, I think I could justify moving you up a tier, because you're only a 2-1. It's hard to justify. You realistically, and again, it's coming out at tier... Did I say tier 3? I think it's tier 2. You come out at tier 2, the average health of something in tier 2, or stat line, it's probably around a 3-2. I mean, it's probably around 3-3, with like caveats associated with it. Yeah, it's probably around 3-3 with caveats associated with it. I think that's about right. So you need to make its effect proc twice to get a value off it, and it takes up a slot then, even doing that. I need another slot. I think you're in here somewhere, but you are something I do play around with a lot. Okay. The snail. Ghost Chili tier. It's an incredible unit. Again, I really like it. I think the balancing on it is incredible. 2-2 tier 3 unit. I'm beginning to lose my voice a little bit as well. 2-2 tier 3 unit. If you've lost the last round and you summon it, it does 2+2 to every other unit on your board. It's legitimately justifiable, especially early on when it's available, to intentionally lose a round to pick up a snail to buff beyond it to win more rounds after that. I think that is so strong, it's untrue. It then has the other advantage of a lot of units early on have buy me, sell me mechanics, like the dog, the shrimp, a bit later on the buffalo, which is even on here because it's on the other expansion pack. I think it's incredible. Now, it does have the disadvantage of it's not always useful, so I probably should put it behind the cow. Because if you won the last round, it doesn't work, and if you haven't got enough health, to lose a round, then it's a worthless creature. But I think for the added boost it gives you, it can legitimately take you like +3 extra wins than you might have otherwise gone without it. I think it's that strong that it should be up here. Snake. Unit ahead, attacks, I think it's on again. It's on the attack, right? I always forget if it's on the attack or on the damage. Yes, it's on the attack. Friend ahead attacks. It deals 5 damage to a random enemy. If it levels up, it's 10, then 15. And it's a 6-6 tier 6. All the 6s. You are probably in the microwavable tier as well. I think you're around the cat. I think you're probably behind the cat. If you can get a 50-50 ahead of a snake and you just purchase a snake, and your unit survives 2 hits, the snake is going to do 10 damage to a random unit. You can get lucky and it could snipe a unit. I'm basically valuing you as a better mosquito considerably. I think you're also a better leopard considerably. At sniping, the dolphin might actually be better than you, but it's just the value add that you get from, This hits the lowest unit, which can be rubbish. It can be a scaling unit. This might hit melon armor too. So it does have other advantages. Also, if you can put a unit ahead of it that dies and death rattles and summons more units and it's 50-50, like the rooster, then you can get even more procs off it. So it can be super strong. It hard counters the token build. You're up there. Spider. 2-2. When it dies, it death rattles and summons a 2-2 of a level 3 unit. What are the level 3 units? Well, this really depends where you get on the ranking of it. If you get a sheep, the spider is honestly in the microwave tier. Because then it's a 2-2 that summons a 2-2 that summons a 2-2 and a 2-2. That's 8-8 stats for a level 3 unit. Which is insane. By the way, when it tiers up, I think it becomes a 3-3? Is it of a tier 3 creature? And then a 4-4? It doesn't tier up very well. Very rarely do I run it. No, it's 4-4 then 6-6. Which isn't too bad. Like, stats-wise, it's pretty good, honestly. Are you even a tier 3, by the way? You're tier 2, aren't you? Yeah, it's tier 2. I'm doing it a disservice. So, on tier 2, if you can get an 8-8 worth of stats, it's honestly Ghost Chili tier. If that was literally its effect, you would always pick a spider. Unfortunately, it's not. And the other things in the tier include the snail, the turtle, which is actually a pretty good get, the giraffe, which is not a good get, and what's your other thing? Oh, you can get blowfish. Because Oh, how many creatures are there in that tier? In fact, this is going to be a better way of doing it. Where are you, tier 2? 3, sorry. You can get badgered as well, which is bad. And then all the builds, there's like camels and stuff like that. Owls. I think basically there is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's a 2 in 15 chance of getting a great unit. That's it. And then there's a 1 in 15 chance that you're probably getting a bad unit. So because of those odds, the high end literally would put it into like, you know, microwave tier plus. I think you're in the sandwich tier. You're something I would pick up but not be thrilled by. You're probably around the cricket. Because then you're probably going to be 4-4 in stats, which is okay. You're just a solid okay unit at that point. You're not really gaining the benefit, you're just pure stats. A bit like the cricket. So actually, you know what? I'm happy with that. Squirrel. Worst unit in the game. Just worthless. Legitimately worthless. Its effect is, if you buy it, it replaces your shop with just food. But it's not discounted. So you're paying 3 gold to turn your shop all into food. And it doesn't, like, you know, specify what foods. Like, an ideal world, you might change that and get, you know, a melon armor, a pear, a pizza, some sushi, and, like, you know, get some scaling going. The amount of times I bought the squirrel and there's 2 cans, 2 chili peppers, and, I don't know, a mushroom. And then, like, plus the other foods, which were probably, like, you know, a cupcake or honey. And you're just like, well, this is all worthless. I've paid 3 gold to be miserable. That's what the squirrel is. It's misery. It needs to be amended. Like, what would I change? And by the way, it's a tier 4 creature. The most miserable experience in this game is tiering up, you know, combining 3 units, getting a tier 4 animal, and the tier 4 has some of the best animals. Deer is in there. Buffalo is in there. The poodle is in there in the expansion pack. The rooster is in there. The worm. The monkey. The penguin. All incredible creatures. Hippo and dolphin, okay. Skunk, okay. You can accept them. When you get a squirrel, which is only 2-2 as well, it has no stats, just, you know, seek counselling. Because your run is ruined. Your day is ruined, your run is ruined. You're just unhappy. It needs an amendment. It needs to discount the food, I think, that it summons. I think then you have a chance of it being better. But even then, I still think it needs to, like, guarantee something. But I don't even know how you do it. You'd have to, like, put monikers on the different foods, like buff foods, or, like... I guess it gets too complicated then. I don't know. Maybe severely discount the food would be one way of doing it. Like, rather than it being 2 gold per food, it's 1 instead. So that if you get a truly terrible food shop, it's fine. You got a bad squirrel. If you get a great one and you have like 3 pairs on it or something, you get huge discounts and you get a huge boon. Then you're a bit like the spider. Like, you have a big high roll, but a very likely chance of being roll, like, you know, blue balled even. I was going to say low rolled. The swan. Tier 3? Why am I so bad with tier 3s and 2s? It's tier 2 again. I get so confused. Tier 2, it's 3-4, gives 1 gold at the end of the turn. You're basically trading 1 attack from the spider for the average roll of the spider to gain 1 gold passively at the end of each turn. In my opinion, that is well worth it. The swan, frankly, is in the brew tier somewhere. Possibly even slightly higher than the brew tier. It enables other builds so nicely. I honestly think it's around the rabbit. If you have like a food build, it gives you extra gold to buy food. If you're doing buy me, sell me, it gives you extra money to do buy me and sell me's. It's just good across the board. It's great in the mid game, just to enable like a build, and then you just sell it off. And you're happy. It's done its job. All it has to do is provide you with gold with no strings attached. Beautiful creature. Tiger. So the tiger doubles the effect of the animal in front during battle. Again, I have to put the tiger with the fly in this tier. I'm probably going to put it slightly ahead of the fly because it has some other niche scenarios where it's useful. It's super good in tiger. You know what? I'm going to grab the turkeys while we're at it. The next to one another. Tiger, turkey, fly, I think, is one of the other legitimately viable builds. So the turkey gives a unit that is summoned +3/+3. Then it's +5/+5 and plus... Is it +5/+5? I think it is. It's a build I don't run that often, honestly. The turkey is tier 5. The tiger is tier 6, by the way, so it's hard to get it. Ah, it's +3/+3, then +6/+6, and +9/+9. That makes sense. So you can, if you can get a tier 2 turkey and a tiger behind it, you can summon a fly which was meant to be 2/2, and if it's this tier 2, it becomes a 14/14. That gives you enough health to chip away at these high health and high attack builds and actually beat them. I think this package is just its own package, and basically that's its one niche example where it's better. I'm going to put the tiger ahead because there are other examples of using the tiger. You can put the tiger behind the dodo and buff the dodo. You can put it behind the snake and buff the snake. And they are pretty nice, variants of it. Put it behind the rooster and get 4 summons off the rooster. That's a very strong thing from it. In fact, you know what? You probably have more uses than the dodo, so I'm going to move you up. I think I'm going to put you here. You actually have lots of varieties in terms of interesting builds. I actually quite like you as a creature. You are very strong. I don't always buy you, though. But I probably buy you more than the dodo, the turkey, the fly. Not these two. These are kind of like separate cases as well. And definitely not more than the monkey, or in fact, not more than these 3. I think this is where you lie. Again, it looks a bit top-heavy, my build. But I'm really accounting for the fact that there's this like niche build in there, which is very strong. If you took, like, I said this niche build, there's 2 niche builds. Realistically, if you took the dodo, the tiger, the rooster, and the fly out, it begins to look a bit more, Gaussian. Anyway, the turtle. I am almost tempted to put you in Ghost Chili tier, but I don't think you're Ghost Chili tier. I think you're Microwave tier. I think you're somewhere around here. You're around the ant. So I've had some fantastic runs where you've got like a 50-50 turtle literally from the beginning of the game. And you're just laughing. So the turtle is a tier 3 creature. I got it right this time. It is 2/4, which is actually pretty good stat-wise. And it provides melon armor to the unit behind you on the death rattle. If it tears up, it does the 2 friends behind melon armor, and then the 3 friends behind melon armor. Which is fantastic. Melon armor is basically, up until the very, very end game, a free hit. And that is invaluable. It turns every unit to effectively change into does 5 damage for free to the unit that it's attacking. Which in the early game, if you have like a dog which has the effect of the rhino, you're pretty happy, to get that. Plus, it has little niche benefits. I mentioned before that, you can't put food on the butterfly, but you can put a turtle in front of it. So you have a turtle in front of the butterfly, the turtle dies, puts melon armor on your 50-50 butterfly, and you're laughing. There's another niche build which I like, which is from the expansion pack, which I'll somehow add to this, where you kill a bacteria, I think it's called. Is it called bacteria or amoeba? I don't remember now. But the thing that puts weakness on all your enemies. Or allies as well. Allies and enemies. Every unit gets weakness. You have a turtle die behind it with melon armor like tier 3, and it replaces that weakness with melon armor. Your 50-50s might be 50-50s with melon armors, whereas they have weakness. That build is actually surprisingly strong. So because of your usefulness, and you can get pilled. You know what, the more I'm talking about this, the more and more I'm thinking you are actually in this tier. You're the back end of this tier. Or at the front end of this one. You know what, to try and make this a bit more Gaussian, I'm going to put you at the front end of Microwave. Yeah, I think you're around this tier. You're very strong. Right, the last 2 for the free-to-play pack. And then I'll try and somehow add the other ones to this. Whale. Whale eats the friend in front and spits it out behind on the death rattle as a level 1 variant of itself. Very strong with deers. Very strong with ants and sheeps. Can enable turkey builds on its own. But is not a fantastic unit. It really needs those 3 examples. It doesn't scale particularly well into the end game. But it can be very strong in the mid game. So I'm actually going to drop you in Brew tier. But I think you're right at the back of Brew tier. Actually, you know what? I think you're in sandwich tier. I think you're at the front end of sandwich tier. You're probably around... You're around here somewhere. Can I get you one game? Can you... I think this is fine. There are like 3 or 4 animals that you really work great with. You're actually not too bad with Fly Shark build as well. That's a pretty nice enabler for it. You're going to get through the mid-game pretty nicely. But you tail off at the very, very end. I've never really made a whale pop right at the end. But maybe you need a combination of scaling plus... like some temporary scaling plus the whale build. The problem with the whale build as well is that if you do scale the unit that's swallowed, you lose those stats. So you basically like eat stats. Which isn't great, which is why I'm putting you in sandwich tier. And then finally for the base pack, the worm. The worm is a 1/1 tier 4 animal. If it eats a food, it gets +1/+1 on top of that, I think. Correct? Yes. And then when it levels up, it's +2/+2 and then +3/+3. The worm is one of those creatures, a bit like the butterfly, that I think if you get it early, you have to go for it. For that reason, I'm going to put you around the dog tier in the brew tier. I call it the dog tier, it's the brew tier. But it has a big caveat attached. In fact, I'll put you around here. Yeah, I think you're around here. If you get the worm early enough, go for it. Because you might legitimately get a fast 50-50, and you'll be laughing. If you get it late, you just never look at it. It's just useless. But I think for this like high roll chance, I think I have to justify that we put it in the brew tier. You're somewhere around brew sandwich though. You're like middle of the pack. But have the potential to go higher. Which is why I'm putting you in brew. Excellent. Anyway, this is my tier list so far. This is, I think, all the free-to-play animals. Join me next time as I think I will do the expansion packs animals. I could just blast through quickly, by the way, the foods. Shall I just blast through the foods? Sure, it's already like a 3-hour video. Because I will literally just be blasting. In terms of foods... Oh no, screw it, I'll do the food separately. It's like, I'll do the next video as like food plus the expansion pack animals. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. If you disagree with this, or you agree with me, tell me in the comments below, why not? And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.